What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. It's Myles. Today, let's talk about UFC 251 Fight Island fight predictions. Now we're going to Abu Dhabi, and in the main event, we have Kamaru Usman versus, at the time I make this video, it's Jorge Street Judas Masvidal, aka Gamebred. Now, this main event, this fight with his title, 170 pounds, has been pushed around, and there's been a lot of stuff going on. Originally, Jorge was supposed to be the guy to fight Usman, but he couldn't come to terms about the title, about the money, and UFC didn't really want to pay him what he wanted. So they moved next down the line, and it was Leon Edwards. But because of the sickness that's going around, he couldn't make it happen. And next up, and who they ended up giving the title shot to, was Gilbert Burns. Now, most recently, Gilbert tested positive with the sickness. I'm not going to name what it is, but he basically got called off the fight. Cannot fight. And now that left UFC in a position where they don't have a challenger for the welterweight title. So they went back to Jorge Masvidal. As I make this, Jorge and UFC figured out a number, and now Jorge's going to be going to Abu Dhabi in 6 days, and he's going to fight Kamaru Usman for the title. This is a sick fight. I mean, you have Kamaru Usman, who's coming off of a dominant performance over Colby Covington. That was a good back and forth fight, and he ended up breaking Colby's jaw and stopping him in the 5th round. Before that, Kamaru Usman dethroned Tyron Woodley in a dominant fashion as well for a decision, and Kamaru Usman has also beat guys like Damian Maia and some great up-and-coming fighters as well. On the other side of the cage, you have Jorge Masvidal. This guy's been around the game for a while, and even though he's got some losses, man, he's like a fine wine. He gets better with time. And most recently, he's beat Nate Diaz in a dominant fashion for the BMF title. Before that, he beat Ben Askren, which is, I believe, the fastest knockout in UFC history. That famous flying knee right off the top. I believe it was 6 seconds. And before that, he beat and knocked out Darren Till, who's a top 5 middleweight in the world. So I think it's safe to say that Jorge Masvidal definitely deserves this title shot, and he's on fire as well. So how do I see this fight going? Well, I do give the advantage on paper to Kamaru Usman. I think, he's a little bit more coming off impressive wins. I think he's a little bit more athletic, and he's the champion. You have to beat the champion. On the other side, though, I see Jorge Masvidal striking and his ability to move his head, dodge shots, and defend that takedown, giving Usman problems. I think Usman's going to come out, try and keep it standing, try and outstrike him, but I'm going to give that edge to Jorge Masvidal. I think Masvidal's a little bit better striker, a little bit more experienced, a little better defense, and I think after a while, Usman's going to find that out and start trying to look to get takedowns and clinch him up. I really think that Jorge Masvidal has underrated jiu-jitsu and underrated wrestling, and I don't see him really getting taken down that much. If he does, I see him popping right back up. So I'm going to give this fight to Jorge Masvidal by decision. I think it's going to be a great fight, great striking, and 2 guys that are hungry and want to get after it. Super entertaining. Before we get into the co-main event on the card, make sure to just hit that subscribe button with a high kick, or maybe drop a little elbow on it. Next up, we have Max Holloway versus Alexander Volkanovski for the 145-pound title of the world. Now, most recently, Alexander just defeated Max Holloway by a unanimous decision. Landing good leg kicks, landing those power shots. Max couldn't really find a range for his combinations that he usually likes to throw. And on paper, you have to kind of go with the champion, Alexander. He just literally defeated Max Holloway. But with that being said, I most recently watched Max Holloway's fight with Brian Ortega and Max Holloway's fight with Alexander Volkanovski. And it was a different Max Holloway in the Ortega fight. He was fired up from the get-go. He wanted to get after it. He wanted to break Ortega from the get-go. When I watched his fight with Alexander Volkanovski, I just didn't see that same fire. And that's the question. Will Max Holloway come out this fight with that fire, with that gangster Hawaiian, let's go, I'm going to stay in your face and break you before you can break me? Because he's going to need to. On the other side of the cage, you have Alexander Volkanovski, who trains with a great team. I mean, this guy has beaten everybody in the UFC, from Jose Aldo to Max to Chad Mendez. And the guy's on fire right now. He's super confident, and he's stated as saying he's going to finish Max in this fight. Most recently, Max did an interview saying that he didn't do any training for his team with this fight. All he did was do Zoom with his coaches. So that to me is either a really good thing or a really bad thing. Granted, I think Max has that gangster mentality. I don't think that's going to stop him. I think he's just confident that he's ready. He's ready. He doesn't need to train. He doesn't need to do anything. That he has exactly what it takes to beat Alexander Volkanovski. So in this fight, I'm going to go with Max. I think Max is going to show up fired up. I think he's going to stay that volume on Alexander, stay in his face. I think Max is going to make some adjustments, get out of the way of those leg kicks, stay out of the way of some of those power shots by Alexander. Max is going to use that volume, switching stances, kicks, everything to win a unanimous decision over Alexander Volkanovski. It's going to be a great fight. Last up, we have a Striker's Delight fight. See what I just did there? Striker's Delight fight. You have Peter Yan versus Jose Aldo. These guys are both great kickboxers and they're both pressure fighters. Most recently, Peter Yan has defeated Uriah Faber in a dominant fashion. Uriah looked really good, mixing stuff up, but Peter Yan was just one step ahead of him. And Peter Yan is this mean, man. He throws with bad intentions and he stays in your face. And now on the other side of the cage, you have Jose Aldo. Jose Aldo is a former champion, been in there with the best. He just dropped down to 135 pounds and took the number 2 guy, Marlon Moraes, on. Now, a lot of people thought Jose won that fight. I personally think Marlon won, but the way Jose Aldo fought, came in, number 2 guy in the world, got in his face, chased him around the cage, didn't skip a beat. That was super impressive. Now, fast forward, here he is getting the UFC title shot against Peter Yan. I think this is going to be a great kickboxing fight. I'm going to give the advantage to Peter Yan based on just being hungry and being able to stay in Jose Aldo's face a little bit more. But with that being said, I do think this is a close fight. I don't think any fighter has the clear advantage. And on paper, you might even be able to say that Jose Aldo's a little bit more of a favorite. I like to see the odds, but I'm going to lean towards just hunger, meanness, and I'm going to go with Peter Yan by a decision or a TKO. That's my pick for this fight. There's also some awesome fights. The return of Thug Rose. You got Paige Van Zandt on this main card. So this is going to be a sick card coming from Abu Dhabi. And I'm excited for it. Let me know your guys' thoughts. Who do you think is going to win and how? Drop a comment below. And don't forget, smash that thumbs up button and that subscribe button.